Welcome to Pitch It, the Fintech Startups Podcast. One founder, one startup, one investor at a time. I'm your host, Todd Anderson, Chief Content Officer, Fintech Nexus. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's episode of Pitch It. I sat down with Chip Castille, founder and CEO of GoalBased Investors. GoalBased Investors is the first goals-based investment community for investors and financial advisors. And the financial advisor piece is really what makes goal-based and their product Lasso different from, say, a Robinhood. The Robinhood model is very much do it yourself. You can trade equities, you can trade crypto. Here's some videos, here's some educational materials. Goal-based is really one about setting goals and saving for those goals, retirement being ultimately the biggest goal out there. And they do that by connecting the retail investor with advice, with the advisor who really has knowledge that the retail investor, in many cases, does not. And so Chip and I talk about, his time at BlackRock and his experience there, which he described very much like a founder or entrepreneur-like experience within the overall BlackRock structure, which really set him up and helped him when he decided to make that move to become a founder. So we talk about his journey to becoming a founder and starting the company, where the company stands today, how many employees, what the makeup of the team looks like, some of the biggest issues that retail investors face when trying to build wealth, when trying to save towards goals, what crypto as an asset class means to him, his thoughts on crypto, some lessons that he took from his time at BlackRock and other firms that he worked at, the impact of a potential recession on not only his business but kind of the retail and investment market. What he learned when doing fundraising and talking to investors. The impact of raising capital and talking to VCs when being a bit of a founder that's a bit older than, say, many founders are in the space, and what that might mean. Raising capital in general, the investor appetite for what they're building, and much, much more. Before we go ahead and get you into the episode, wanted to remind you we're just a few days away from our Fintech Nexus LATAM event. Going to be a great event in Miami, December 13th and 14th. There's still some tickets available, so make sure you get those tickets. Use the code word, use the discount code podcast for a discount of 15% off, and hopefully we'll see you in Miami. Now, without further ado, I present Chip Castille, founder and CEO, GoalBased Investors. I hope you all enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast, Chip. How are you?
I'm good, Todd. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you. I'd just like to kick off, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, kind of what your journey's been to this point, and, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So I started in the early 90s at Wells Fargo Nico Investment Advisors, which was the precursor to BlackRock Global Investors, which was then acquired by BlackRock. And so in total there, that's about close to 30 years. I did a 7-year stint at Wilshire Associates, where I was head of their, I was the chief investment officer of their fund management group. So got to meet I was head of their manager research as well. So I got to meet a lot of money managers all across the country. My career is mostly bounced between product design, distribution, and investment, investment theory and so on. So when I started, I was in research. I was lucky enough to be on the team that invented the target date fund. I wrote the software for the first target date fund. I then moved into a distribution team. Started thinking about ways to mix active and passive funds together. At that time, Wells Fargo Nico was a great firm that was in large part, it created indexing and then became Barclays Global Investors. And got interested in that. And so I got moved into research to publicize that and work on that. And that became a really successful effort for us. And then ended up on our global macro hedge fund as a researcher. Went to Wilshire for a while, came back to work on the DC team at BGI. And then when BlackRock bought us, they made me head of US defined contribution. We took that book of business from about 200 billion AUM to 600 billion under my tenure. That was about 4 years. I then got really interested in the fact that there was no benchmark for retirement income. And I was trained as an indexer. And so if you give an indexer an investment problem, they immediately say, well, what's the benchmark? And so I just thought, this is crazy that the retirement is the biggest number on almost anybody's balance sheet, particularly in individual investors. The retirement liability is almost always their biggest number on their balance sheet. And nobody really knows how to calculate it. Nobody knows how to account for it. So we got really interested in how to help people understand that. And that led to something called CORI, which stands for Cost of Retirement Income, which is BlackRock's first index. And then once we got that out, that was like 2013, we started saying like, well, how would people make investment decisions if you knew what the benchmark was? And so that led to something called iRetire, which was a really fun project at BlackRock. And then I wanted to expand that. And while I was working on that at the same time, and this kind of leads into why I left and why I started GBI, was I got iPhones were in 2007, but by 2012 I've always written software, and I wanted to see, could you solve interesting investment problems on a phone? This was something, it's like iPhone 4, tiny screen. And I got really interested in it. Like how much, how could you distill this problem so that it'd be fun to do it on a phone? And I kept getting encouraging results from that as I worked with it over the years. And after I retire, I just said, I want to do this, and I want to bring this to retail investors. And BlackRock really isn't set up to do that. They go down to kind of wholesalers. And so, we talked about it for a couple of years. I decided this is something I needed to do. And so I left in 2018 and played around with some prototypes for a couple of years. And we did a soft launch in January of 22 this year, and a full launch in May of 22. So hopefully I can go into any more detail, or you can kind of edit out what you didn't, if I went into too much detail there, apologies.
Well, I'm curious, I always want to understand, how was it transitioning from what was a career in corporate to being a founder? Because, obviously that takes guts in some way. There's risk with it, but it's a pretty big transformation from working in a big name like BlackRock and others where you spent your career. So how has the founder journey been so far for you?
It's been fun, and kind of in all the different flavors of that. So terrifying, exhilarating, rewarding, all of it. I think BlackRock was very focused on innovation, and really tried to create a culture where people felt like that they could pursue kind of entrepreneurial, almost like founder type initiatives. And my time at BlackRock, I had responsibilities over distribution, over product management, over portfolio, design, marketing. So I wore all those hats in one unit, which was fairly unusual at BlackRock at that time. So, so aside from not having BlackRock on your business card, it was pretty seamless. I thought like an entrepreneur inside of BlackRock, and I think I think they like that. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and I'm a Cajun from Southern Louisiana. We're very entrepreneurial, and growing up, I heard around the dinner table at night my father talking about how he was doing this and that, and it's pretty comfortable. So
So tell us, and tell the audience a bit more about, exactly what you guys are building, and ultimately who's the target market.
great, yeah. So our initial product is called Lasso, and it serves three different audiences, which is the retail investor, the financial advisor, and the asset manager. And so to the individual investor, the retail investor, it looks like gamified, very lightweight financial planning. And then we really lean into matching app paradigms and UXs to make advice discovery easier. So if you think about from an individual investor, their problems are, how do I understand where I am with respect to achieving a goal?
Mm-hmm.
And people invest for goals. And so hence the name goal-based investors. I mean, people don't invest to, they have goals that they want to achieve in their life that are important to them. So we wanted to help them understand, make everything around the goal and help them understand, here's where I am with respect to that, and use gamification to make that easy to understand. So we're not, when running the DC program, I saw a lot of companies try to put financial literacy programs into place with limited success.
Yeah.
So we just said, we don't want to help, we don't want to try to help people understand how to become an expert investor. We want to show them what it feels like to navigate a plan and see the things that are in their control. So things like, how much capital do I have? How long can I wait? What can I save every year? And then this last thing that we call portfolio, and it's just one of the other ingredients. And we make it really easy to understand the impact of each of those ingredients on the determination of your expected plan success. So it's gamified financial planning. And then the second thing is like, how do I get help? How do I, in almost every walk of life, we need help to achieve important and complicated goals. And advice discovery is really hard. And so we wanted to make that easier. And so we started looking around at who does this well. So there's, matching apps are something that people are really familiar with. So Angie's List would be a good one,
Yep.
or Zillow, just bringing together two buyers and sellers, or dating apps is another one that we really lean into those paradigms. And so that's what it looks like to the retail investor. To the advisor, it's lead gen. So this is really quick and efficient, and most importantly, it's free to financial advisors. And I'll talk about how we monetize in a second. And so the idea there is that we want it to be efficient for the advisor's time. We want it to be productive, and our initial indications are that it is productive. And again, we want to lean into those matching app paradigms. And so things like all of the services are free, but if you want more of the basic services, you can do things like boosts, or which increases your visibility on the platform, or increases your ability to reach out to individual investors. And then the last piece is for the asset manager, which is one of the best, what we think is the best advertising platform for asset managers, because what it does is it reaches individual investors that have downloaded an app, built a plan, said they're looking for help. So these are the people that are right before you're going to put money in motion. That's the audience. So every other marketing spend is trying to get to find those people, and we've already built a collection of those people that are ready to go. And then for the advisors, these are the people that are tech savvy, they're innovators, they're looking to kind of build their businesses in new ways. And so again, that's a really attractive audience for for asset managers to reach that advisor community. So, and that's how we monetize it. So it's through asset managers saying, hey, I want to advertise on this platform.
It seems today, there's, or at least the last few years, there was a big push into the market towards the retail investor of, hey, do it yourself. The Robin Hoods of the world and others. Hey, there's ways that you can easily get on a platform, very little friction, set up an account, fund the account, and then go ahead and kind of figure it out yourself. Why why was it important for you guys to go a little bit different, which was to connect them with that potential help that they can have that option? And talk a little bit about kind of the thinking behind the help aspect, which is clearly different from some of those kind of do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah, I think for us, the thing was, and we had seen this in the DC business as well, that when people do it themselves, they tend to make a lot of mistakes. So I can tell you right now, when we look at the investors on the platform that have built a plan and they're doing it, let's take retirement, for example. They, on average, have about a 22-year investment horizon, but their stock bond allocation is 50-50. So if you were to compare that to a target date fund, which is kind of state of the art and trying to understand, relate time horizon to asset allocation, you would see something like 70-30, maybe 75-25, something like that. So these people are they're making a big asset allocation mistake. And now the self-directed people can also provide the tools and the context to try to help them correct those mistakes, but that requires a lot of lift on the investor's part.
A lot of reading,
now,
a lot of video watching, a lot of it's time. It's time.
Yeah. So advisors can help you with the asset allocation. They can help you with. They have generally a much better knowledge of the product landscape, and they can provide coaching at really critical times. So right now, if you look at the growth rates in self-directed, it's actually down quite a bit over the last 18 months or so. Is because the markets are different. It's not, it's not like it's harder to find out what to do. I mean, you got rising, rates are going up for the first time in decades. And, what's that going to do to the equity risk premium? It's not as easy as it was 2 years ago. And so the value of advice is higher, I think.
In terms of, some of the, based on your knowledge in the space and what you guys have found, what are some of the biggest impediments to building either wealth or building, those goals and meeting those goals ultimately? Because it seems to me that, from what I hear a lot is, the education gap is just enormous. We don't learn it in early school days. We need to seek it out when we hit 18 or 20 and we're put a student loans put in front of us. Then it's like, what is this product? What are financial products? So do you see education still being one of the top reasons? What are some of the kind of impediments that people see to building towards these goals, as you say?
I think it's what we've tried to do is to make it easy to understand what to do and to easy to understand where you are. And the analogy, I think we make a mistake on trying to educate people to become experts in a field that's technically challenging. And the analogy that I've used quite a bit is kind of, if I started using when my boy was about 8 years old or something. It was like, hey, show me how to throw a ball better, show me how to do this. And if I had gone to him and said, well, son, your problem is how do you move a spherical mass through a gravitational field using rotational velocity, and here's a bunch of textbooks and let's figure it out. That's basically what the education approach is. Like, let's learn about standard deviations, let's learn about expected returns.
Interesting way to position it.
So what we actually do in that instance is I say, hey, watch me, and you do it, and then watch me again, and then you do it, and you can see how you're doing it and get better. And so that's what the gamification is about, is kind of, I'm not going to teach you about investing. I'm going to show you what your plan feels like based on the parameters that you can control. How long can you wait? How much can you dedicate to this problem today? How much can you save in the future? How much do you want? Play around with it. If I can make that iterative and fast enough, you're going to kind of zoom in on the space that's right for you much more quickly than me trying to teach you how compounding arithmetic works. Nobody can do compounding in their head. Nobody has intuition for it. And so that is the basic process in investment management, is that things compound. And so it's hard to get people over that lack of intuition.
So you spent obviously a lot of time in the various companies, but you had 11 years at BlackRock, at least according to your LinkedIn. And what are some of the lessons that you learned from there that maybe you took and brought to what you're building at goals-based investors, and obviously starting with Lasso?
Yeah. So I think the thing that was always served me well is to really start from first principles, and that's part a condition that's been forced on me because I don't really have training in this field. I was an undergrad in journalism, and so I kind of wandered into asset management through a story that's told for maybe the second episode of this, but I they so I've always kind of had to start from scratch, and at first that was challenging and kind of intimidating, but I started to realize there's a lot of value in it because I had to work out kind of what are we actually trying to do.
Mhm.
um, and so and the thing about BlackRock that's so amazing is that just the breadth of product that you have, and it's so that if you can come up with an idea, you can usually build it, you can implement it because the product's there to support that idea. And the other thing that I think, so that idea was, what is it that we're really trying to do? What's the essence of the problem? So I mentioned the retirement index that I talked about in the kickoff. That was like a great insight, like, what is it that people, why don't we have a benchmark? Why can't I tell somebody what's the fair value of $1 of retirement income for life when you're 40 or you're 30? How do I
Mhm.
help you put that number on your balance sheet? That's the real essence of the problem. What's the liability? And then how do I help you understand that? And how do I help you make better decisions around that? If I can help you with those two things, I've moved the ball quite a bit there. And so that to me is something that's kind of served me well. The second thing is, the quality of the people at BlackRock are great. And so learning, things that are exciting to me are like building great products with teams that you really like to work with. So, and building the team chemistry is something that I really learned a lot about at BlackRock.
Yeah, the next question's a little bit off topic in what you guys do, but with all that's happened in the market, especially the last 6 months, and someone that's been in the space that you've been in, what are your thoughts on kind of crypto as an asset class, and what that means to the retail investor and the options that they get to kind of look and decide from to help them reach these goals?
Yeah. So first off, in the crypto space, it's just been fascinating to watch it evolve, and just so many bright people working in that space, and so much, I think, smart investors backing that space. That the headlines, I don't think I hope, are not really telling the story around what's happening there. And so I think on one side you have this attempt to kind of lower the trust requirements to have a functioning economy, right? So how do you build economic relationships without requiring so much trust? And that's I think interesting and worthwhile to pursue. On the other side, though, you have kind of what is a currency. So traditional money uses are things like store of value. I have $100,000 today. It'll be $100,000 next week. It'll roughly be the same value. It's a unit of accounting. I can figure out kind of, it helps me tally up accounts. And then the last thing is a unit of exchange. So it makes it easy to purchase goods and services. So those are kind of the three traditional uses of money. If I was going to comment on the crypto space in a way that I'm a little confused by, it's that there seems to be a huge amount of emphasis on store of value. So much though that you kind of, all the yield farming stuff and all of that is kind of like not even store of value, but let's increase the value.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's like the best emphasis. If I was going to work in that space right now, I think I'd work on how would I make units of exchange more tailored to specific types of transactions so that it would, and help understand the unit of accounting a little bit better. So for instance, is there kind of a coin that you could create that would help insurance companies trade liabilities more easily because it was tied really directly to their problem, and they could keep it on their books, they could trade it with each other. And so now you've got a better unit of exchange, you've got a better unit of accounting. The store value takes care of itself. So I think there are a lot of uses for that kind of innovation. We just haven't got there yet, and we'll
Yep.
see how it happens.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned about goals based since you guys first launched?
Everything takes longer than you hoped. Well, everything that
That's for
longer than
sure.
you hoped, and then longer than you expected, even. So you have your hopes, you have your expectations. You learn to kind of put a gap between those, but it takes it way longer than you even expected. And so that has been, and that's probably where a not recognized lesson of BlackRock, or was that because of the resources there and because of the footprint that BlackRock has, you can kind of move a bit faster, which is kind of surprising to hear, because the reputation of big companies that they move slowly.
Yeah.
But I think one cool thing about BlackRock is that if you can get the attention within the firm, you kind of get to fly the plane for like an hour a year, and that's a lot of fun, and the firm just gets behind you and things move really fast. And then a lot of your time is kind of figuring out how do I recreate that opportunity. It As a founder, you really have to. You don't have that opportunity to just put all the massive momentum of a BlackRock behind you. Everything is earned, and it goes a lot more slowly.
If not the biggest, do you have at least one regret since you've launched the company?
Uh, the timing, with COVID and everything, that was kind of, I wish I had done it a little bit earlier. And that would really be the main regret. I really like where the product is. I think it's come out. Nothing comes out like you thought it was going to come out.
Yeah.
The first idea that I had for it was, I was on the subway in New York all the time, and I would see people playing Candy Crush.
Mhm.
And I was saying, like, well, this is like the biggest waste of time. Like, what if you could help people, like, they could do something entertaining, but actually solve a problem, like financial planning. Like, how do I build a retirement plan by playing Candy Crush? And so I built a version of Candy Crush that would let you, if you cleared blue crystals, you would add time to your retirement plan and so on. And it was I thought it was kind of cool. And I showed it to somebody that I liked, that was a UX person. And he says, somebody who does this would say, this is the worst Candy Crush game I've ever played, and I hate my retirement plan. And so it was like, so that that was kind of eye opening. And that he said, you can't blend these two experiences. You have to kind of focus on the one experience. And so we kind of restarted and got to where we are. But I really like where the product is. It's not exactly where we thought it would be when we launched. But the feedback from people that are using it is really strong. So that's exciting.
Best piece of advice you received so far since launching?
Uh, you have to ask for things. I think, and that was things. I kind of knew that, but I think at times I've been a little bit reluctant to make the ask. You have to ask for the relationships. You have to ask for your marketing materials. Everything is really about finding the right way to make the ask, and then understanding the product market fit. So
Mhm.
for us, at first we thought it was going to be more focused on planning, and we thought the value in the platform was around planning, and then we realized it was around using planning to find advice. And so just being adaptive to what you're learning, and then not being, just that's what it is, so let's enhance that. So the market tells you what you can do. Basically, the market kind of gives you permission to be the who you think you can be in the market. And then you need to kind of get really sharp around what the market's giving you. And I used to joke at BGI, we had so much engineering talent because we were quants. And I knew that we could build a really good bicycle at BGI. We had all of the engineering talent that we needed to manufacture an amazing bicycle, but nobody wants to buy a bicycle from BGI. And so you have to get permission from the marketplace to kind of make your offering.
Mhm.
And so we've been, I think, trying to figure out what is the market going to let us do, given what our skills are. And I think we found it, and it's, we're really locking down around that and getting sharp around it, trying to become more of what we are instead of trying to become something that we aren't.
You mentioned team before and building. Tell us a little bit more about your team. How many
Well,
people are on the team, and kind of what does it
yeah.
look like? What's the makeup of it today?
So we've got we're a team of 7 today. We'll probably add a few in the next month or so. We've got it's mostly developers. We've up until I think last summer we were mostly agency based. So we had a great group, Z1 Studios in Spain, that really we worked with them for about a year and a half, and it was fantastic. But we slowly built up our engineering team, and we're fully remote. They're really everywhere. I mean, I would say that they're from East Coast to the West Coast, and even distribution across the country, which makes payroll taxes kind of interesting. But my colleague Becca Randall is president, and there are a few of us that work together at BlackRock. She's one of them, and so she's president, and we're doing the sales effort, and then we hire a marketing agency as well. So 3 Crowns in Omaha, Nebraska. It's been fantastic, and so it's kind of a little bit of virtual, a little bit of agency, and all remote, and it's been fun. That's been as much fun as anything, is watching the networks develop and watching the capabilities emerge out of those nascent networks has been a lot of fun to watch and be a part of.
I saw that you guys had raised some capital from investors. How was the fundraising process? Did investors get it? Tell us a little bit more about kind of what you learned through that process.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I'd never done this before, so this was all new for me. And some people got it. It's just like everything else. Some people got it. I think it's always a challenge to set what is and I'm going to use the wrong word here, but the buying criteria. Like, so the investors are buying something. Are they buying the product? Are they buying the team? There's some combination of that.
Yep.
So I feel like if they were, because it was a new kind of product, some people were a little bit like, we don't understand the product. And to me, it was like, well, there's a version of this over here that's been very successful. Gamification is successful. Matching apps are successful. We're just asking managers to spend some of their wholesaling budgets on doing things that enhance like a value add program. So in asset management, let's say that I have a wholesaling budget at like Vanguard. So I'm holding conferences, I'm taking advisors out for dinners, I'm maybe playing golf, I'm selling them collateral, I'm doing all this stuff. And we're just saying, hey, we are one more thing. If you sponsor advisors on the platform, what better use of your marketing dollar, your wholesaling dollar, is there than to help them get new clients, and in turn you get new assets. So you get to market to the retail audience, you get to market to advisors, and so that's your marketing dollar, but it's a value add program as well. Well, you have to have a pretty deep knowledge of how asset management works to kind of get that. Otherwise, it sounds a little bit too out there. And so some of the people were a little bit scared of the product. And so now I think we've proven that the product is actually, they can see it, they can feel it now, they can kind of see that it's not so, it's kind of cool, it hangs together. The other side of it, there were the VCs that were like more focused on, okay, the product is, but look at the team. And so those are the people that we tended to have more success with, and it was fun. So they kind of looked at our track record, they looked at the firms we had worked at, the success that we'd had there, and another thing too, and it's kind of hard to talk about a little bit, but I think I'm a little bit older than a typical founder that at least when I go to VC conferences, I feel like grandpa at most of them, and so that can play one of either ways. So it's kind of like, yeah, I know how accounting works. I know how corporate controls work. I know, it's easy stuff. It's important stuff, but it's not, you know that you have to have it, and it's not super hard to do. And so that, I think, was, some people like that. And other people said, no, I get the feeling that they were like, we want, younger, visionary, which I felt like we had the vision, but it just came a little bit, older vintage. So
Any fundraising horror stories?
no, I mean, like there's bad meetings, nothing really. I mean, nobody acted badly. I hope I didn't. I don't think I did. But nobody that I interacted with acted badly. Everybody did what they said they were going to do. And, those relationships, everybody's still in and excited about what we're doing. And so, and we've done 2 rounds. So we did a seed round in 21, and we did a bridge round this year, and totally different environments, right, as you would expect.
Oh yeah.
And so that was fun. And it's kind of more like, where are you? Where are you really? I mean, we're not where, from a revenue standpoint, we're still trying to prove where
Yep.
we need to be. And so I think that's kind of really interesting that we have this product that people can see, like, oh, this is really different in this space, but is really successful outside of this space. These methods are successful. And so let's get in and see where this revenue can go. The other thing is, I think we've built an amazing product for the amount of spend that we've raised. We've and just looking around and seeing what other people have raised, I think we've done a really nice job on that.
We have a lot of other founders listen to the show. Would you offer up, what piece of advice would you offer up to them from what you've learned thus far?
It's all the products they're just so different. I think in a lot of cases, I think you need to love your product. I think you need to get excited about it. I think learning how to tell your story, and always, figure out how to tell your story and figure out who's your audience. I think there's always a challenge, because it's kind of like asking a PhD student about their thesis, and you want to tell them everything because you love it. And
Yep.
at the same time, yeah, I always say, like, I know you regretted asking this question 5 minutes ago, but I'm almost done. If you could just hang with me for another couple minutes. So I think, always be refining your story, and always figure out, like, what does your audience want to hear of your story, and how do you edit that in real time?
Yeah.
That's where I love the journalism background that I have, was because journalism is about telling. It's like what do they call it? Like the first draft of history. So it's kind of like you're telling the first. You're always in storytelling mode and trying to figure out how to do it in the most efficient way possible, and understanding your audience. And to me, that if you learn so much about your own product by telling your story over and over and over.
We have just a few minutes left, so I like to end a little bit lighter. Do you have a favorite book or the last book that you read?
Oh gosh, you're catching me at a rough time, because all of my detective novels just came out this last month, so it's really embarrassing airport reading, like Harry Bosch stuff and Elvis Cole and stuff like that. One of so books that I read that I remember this year. One was Abe Lincoln. Really interesting book. I think I call it His Life and Times. I think it was by David Reynolds. And it tells this Lincoln story, which kind of most people know, but it tells, like, not only a story, but like the society that he was living in, which the frontier, he was always on the frontier. He was always kind of making his way. Really interesting stuff, like violent, like in ways that you wouldn't imagine, and really interesting. And the other one is kind of, I have it on my desk right here, Why Information Grows. So this idea of networks leading to the creation of information has been really, one of the things that I'm curious to see how this economy develops, because we've never had, even if you go back to the last financial crisis, the internet was nowhere nearly as developed as it is today.
Yep.
And so with the internet allows human capital to find each other so much more efficiently. And so does that provide any kind of protection against economic uncertainty, the ability to reassemble economic networks ad hoc, And so I'm very curious how to see that. And this book is a lot about how information emerges from networks and the value of that. And then it also, like we've destroyed so many networks because of COVID and the COVID policies, just kind of
Hmm.
seeing, I think if you put on that network lens, it helps you really see the world in different ways that's interesting.
All founders, need breaks. They need to step away. What do you do to unwind and kind of get away, clear your head?
Just the usual stuff. I photography. I like photography. I play around a little bit with music. I like to cook, and a little bit of travel. Not as much as pre-COVID, but it's it's pretty vanilla stuff. Nothing. No base jumping or anything like that.
Do you have a favorite sport or sports teams that you root for?
Well, I mentioned before I'm a Cajun. I went to LSU, so the Tigers are something that I follow pretty. It's really there's a website called Dandy Don, and it's about LSU sports, and that's usually the first thing I look at when I wake up,
Oh,
is to get the
interesting.
daily dose of
Well,
LSU
you
sports.
you
So,
took the coach that I had at Notre Dame.
oh
This was
really?
my
Yeah,
favorite team, and so I think he
yeah.
did pretty well for his first year in the Bayou.
Yeah. I think he did great, and it's not the easiest place to get started. And I'm excited that he's here. Yeah, sorry, condolences. But, pretty
I
much
think
doing good.
I think we have
Yeah,
a pretty good one
yeah,
to fill
yeah,
in for him.
yeah.
Favorite vacation spot?
Oh, uh, Istanbul. I thought was like it's not like a place you can go to a lot, but it is a place that really struck me as kind of I was kind of blown away by it. I travel, so when I was at BlackRock, one of the roles I had was global retirement strategist. So it was like, a lot of travel. And
Mhm.
so I got to see some fun places. Tokyo's, I always tell people if you can go to Tokyo or Istanbul, those are kind of, don't say, just get on the plane right there. Um, Around here, I think Houston's underrated. We're right down the road from Houston here. Amazing diversity, amazing food. Weather is not the best, but it's and then you've got cowboy culture, and it's I think it's a little bit underrated. Um, I guess that's about it.
And then final question for you: biggest inspiration in life? What inspires you?
Oh, just again, a lot of the normal stuff. I think family and my family, my parents. Um, I think at the end of it, I mentioned it earlier, building great stuff with a team that you really like. I think that is having that opportunity is really what gets me up in the morning and says, I want to build something that's really cool and nobody's ever seen before, and do it with the team that is growing and really they're as excited about it. We're kind of building that excitement around it, and there's nothing like that. I think that's the most rewarding experience.
Well, Chip, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show. If someone listening wanted to reach out and get in touch with you or find out more about Goals Based, how can they go ahead and do that?
Getlassoapp.com is the website. I'm on LinkedIn. Pretty easy. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Well, thank you
And
very
thanks for
much
having me.
for,
It's been
yeah,
a
of
lot of fun.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. So thanks again for joining me, and continued success to you and the team. And maybe we'll get you back sometime in the future.
Anytime. Thank you.